a story of overcoming sexual trauma. Hi guys, I had a few minutes today and I wanted to share with you part of a story from one of my top 5 favorite books of all time. I don't know why favorite was so difficult to say, but here we go. It's called The Bonds That Make Us Free. And part of the reason why I love this book so much is it helps you, it was the book that helped me realize when I was living as a victim and continuing to blame my past and the people in my past for my present emotions and present behavior. And it really pointed it out to me in a very gentle way that helped me take ownership. So there's a story in here that is just been coming to my mind and to my heart a lot. And I didn't know if there's somebody out there that needs to hear it and if it might be beneficial for them. Because the main point of this whole story is a very empowering one. It's that we can determine the effect our adversities have on us. And just full disclosure, this is a story about a woman and her brother and her husband, and the woman in her past had been raped. So if that's a very sensitive subject for you and it might dredge up feelings that you're not ready to deal with, then feel free to skip this video. Otherwise, this is just going to be a quick story sharing how important it is to not blame people in our current lives for things that people in the past, other people in the past, have done for us, and that we can truly be liberated and free from what's happened to us. We are not the overall effect of what has happened to us. That's not what we define ourselves by. We are always more than what has happened to us. So here we go. Her name is Barbara. And then the author's name, who is her brother, is Jay. Sorry I read a lot to you guys, but I love books, and I think you're used to it by now. So here we go. After she had been married for several years, my sister Barbara came to me and said she was going to divorce her husband Frank. She would have gone to our father, but he had died. She had discovered that Frank had committed adultery several times, well, quite a bit, actually, over the years, and her heart was broken. She was ashamed and hurt. She seemed to feel she couldn't do anything else but leave him, and I could hardly believe it. I hadn't even guessed this kind of thing might be going on. I thought I should speak to Frank. When we got together, I sensed something was wrong, so I began to pry. Why had Frank done it? Barbara had expected so much more, and hadn't she been loving to him? As we talked, I discovered something that stunned me. Throughout their married life, she had almost always refused him intimacy. Well, I immediately thought of the tragedy that had happened to her when she was raped when she was 12 years old. It was a savage thing. But I had thought, and so did the rest of the family, that after a couple of years, she pretty much got back to normal and grew up without a lot of scars. Now I realized she must have spent her whole married life terrified and sort of walled in. Frank said Barbara's excuse for her behavior was that she cared about him and the physical part wasn't important. I was astonished. What she had done to her husband was terribly wrong, for him and for her. She knew about her problem when she married him, and she blamed all that had happened on him. I knew I had to do something, but I didn't know what. I felt so sorry for her I couldn't stand it. She had been going through all kinds of trouble inside herself, and the rest of us in the family had more or less tried to forget about the whole thing. But I felt that if I didn't watch out, I'd help her paint her situation in the darkest colors, and she never would see her way out of it. If I really loved her, I couldn't stand by while she ruined 2 lives because of her fears. Off and on for more than an hour, as I drove to Barbara's house, I sobbed uncontrollably. When I got there, she started crying and said, "He's shamed me so much, I can't do anything now but leave him, though I'm sure that in a way he feels he's already left me." Then I said I understood she had never allowed her marriage to be consummated. Very defensively, she denied it. "Oh no, that's not true." So I explained to her what I meant, and she said, "Oh, but that isn't important. I have always let him lie close to me and tried to be affectionate." So then I said, "I want to tell you something." I was speaking pretty forcefully because my heart was breaking for her. You knew of the challenges you would have before you married Frank, and you've put a terrible burden on him and blamed it on something that happened to you years ago. This doesn't need to be. What you did is worse than what he did. and what he did is reprehensible. You've been mean and stingy and shriveled and small and unwilling to love and willing to let him suffer because of it. If you don't go home with your husband tonight and love him as you're supposed to love him, I'm going to testify against you in the divorce proceedings. You go home and do right and get this thing behind you." You can imagine how stunned she was and how angry. When I left, she was so upset she could not speak. But I'll tell you, she came to my home the next morning before I even left for work. She hugged me, and the tears were flooding down her face, and she said that what I told her had changed her life forever. "Jay, you're the first person who ever talked to me straight. Everyone else helped me think I couldn't do it. Last night, I loved Frank with all the physical and emotional completeness that a person can. All of it. And I'm not afraid anymore. And Jay, it's hard to believe, but I don't hate the man who did that awful thing to me anymore." So once again, I bring this up not because I think this is a carte blanche, what every person who has been in a circumstance where they have been raped should do. No, this is not prescriptive in any way. This is simply a story about the effect convincing ourselves that we're victims has on our lives, on our present. And I am just so fully convinced that whatever emotional and physical and sexual trauma you have experienced in the past, that your present is too good of an opportunity to waste your energy holding on to that past. Let it go. Find yourself in a safe place now and enjoy that and embrace it, because life is too good to hold on to what's happened to you. Now, there very well may be circumstances where this kind of call out is not called for. And so, yeah, once again, this is not me saying this is how every single family member who knows somebody who's been a rape victim should act toward them. It is 100% circumstantial. And that's kind of the point that this book makes, is that Jay was following an impulse that he felt like was just this like guiding conscience inside of him, that this is the right thing to do for his sister. So whatever, if you know somebody who's had a traumatic experience, especially a sexually traumatic experience, please follow that inner conscience, that inner voice that's inviting you to reach out to them and to be good to them. Because I really can't imagine how devastating an experience like that might be. And those people deserve to know that they're more than victims, that they have an identity that is beyond what has happened to them. So there you go. Thanks for sticking around for another deep thought, and from a thought of a virgin. Have a good one. Dara, over and out.